There's a really big vibrational change occurring right now because of 3i Atlas.
This is creating a sound in our neighborhood of space.
Seems like some sort of software update, and people are already feeling it and connecting to it.
It's a new vibration, a new resonance affecting the music of the spheres that we are subconsciously guided by.
Plasma isn't just charged particles flying around, they form coherence and structure to them. We live in the densest part of the atmosphere. If it was to ionize, things would get wild really quick.
The stars are the furthest part of yourself that you can see. They're actually electromagnetic nodes within your own electromagnetic field.
And these electric currents that connect interstellar groups together, it's all fractal down to our neurons.
I have been talking about this concept that I call spontaneous coherent emergence. We're in that space between nodes where this old pattern and this illusion of separation are starting to break down.
So I just found this out like an hour ago. January, February.
Nikola Tesla wrote this very profound quote that, does rear its head again and again in so many different circles and so many different bodies of work, healing, manifestation. He said, if you want to really understand the laws and the nature of the universe, you've got to come back to vibration. Like you've got to really start to look at the world through the lens of vibration. And, there's that Hermetic principle of as above, so below. So I found myself just reflecting on both of your works and then also knowing that, there's bit of intimacy between the three of us, actually. It's really cool to sort of feel like Eileen's work is here with vibrational fields and like understanding like the impact of one's biofield and how vibration plays and impacts the individual. But then Stefan's also studying vibration and cosmos energies and like all the different sort of vibrations that are playing at that level. And so to open up, I wanted to do something sort of trippy and just ask with Eileen, how do you view Stefan's work in the world and the importance of it? And then maybe I can go Stefan to Eileen, just so Stefan feels comfortable for being here.
Well, I've been a fan of Stefan's content for a few years now. And I got really excited about plasma all the way back in 2009. And I'm just one of those people, I think we all are, that are just so curious about the world we inhabit. And I want to always be learning about the micro, the macro, the relationships between what it means to be human in this realm. And Stefan's really one of the only people out there who's talking about phenomenon related to the stars, the heavens, and the earth, and talking about plasma because it's still such an omission from the mainstream perspective. It shows up here and there, but he's really taking a really good look at it, and I really appreciate that. I watch almost all of his videos, honestly.
I love that. Stefan, your worldview, because you've obviously got your own set of tuning forks. You've been hanging out for a while with Eileen as well, learning how to wield the lightsaber. Your worldview on Eileen's work?
Yeah, well, for me, it goes back to when I first made my shift out of my normal waking job to this kind of more expanded cosmos. And that was August of 2021 when I had a Biofield tuning and her name got brought up. And what I like about what Eileen is doing and many others is that I think the experiential aspect is so important, if not the most important aspect of everything. Because right now, science is very much like models and models built off of models, and also just like, it can't be that because my ego is saying that it can't be that. A good example is that we had that seismic crisis in Greece. I just found this out like an hour ago. January, February, 20,000 earthquakes, something like that. And a lot of the main scientists and a lot of the main science communicators online were saying, this is a tectonic only event. There's no indication that's volcanic, nothing. Anyone saying that is a fool. They're alarmists. They are pseudoscientists. A paper was just published in Nature showing that there's a massive magma intrusion underneath Santorini that caused that seismic swarm. So, I mean, there's like, yeah, you can have all your ideas and your models and your ego can feed into stuff, but it's like, what's the actual experience telling you? and the just like the intuition and all that. A lot of the data was suggesting this too for Santorini that there was a seismic swarm. But like Eileen's in the field every single day. A lot of other people are in the field every single day. I don't think you can just like brush that off or discount it because you don't have experience with it and you don't understand it. So that's kind of your first clue that maybe it's time for you to pick up the tuning fork and play around a bit. And when I met her in July at her institute, there was a guy there who came in from Google X division, and I mean he was very open to all these things, but he's also coming in from like a tech company. It's a little bit more probably in that science side of things, science side of things. And he was like, I'm feeling it. Like it was like all very apparent to him. So yeah, I love how Eileen's doing the work, and she's been learning about plasma forever and going back now to do even more research. So her mindset and ethos is also like correctly aligned too, which is very inspiring.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I feel both of you kind of like, I don't want to say we're at war. So what is that? Anyway, careful frequency. We're having a conversation about frequency here. But like, yeah, I can see Eileen as like medic in the field. It's like helping people like, this is how we defib your biofield back into energy. And it's like, Stefan's like, and this is what's on the horizon. So yeah, Eileen, you and I had a conversation not too long ago, and it was actually kind of interesting. I'm not sure if you're comfortable sharing here, but um, that was interesting what Stefan just said about what was happening in Santorini, because you've also had experiences recently where the weather forecasted in a certain place isn't aligned to what's actually happening boots on the ground, to Stefan's point, models on top of models. Are you comfortable reflecting on that with us?
Well, that was the whole Jamaica hurricane experience, and my husband was there because we have a home in Negril, and so I was watching the radar, and Mr. Weatherman, I was really kind of staying on top of what was happening. But it was really interesting. My AccuWeather app was saying that it was windy and raining in Negril in the couple days leading up to it, but my husband, who was on the ground, was saying it's sunny and calm. And so that, I've been a fan of weather since the Weather Channel first came out. It's probably why I like your channel, Stefan. Or like when the Weather Channel first came out in the '80s, like I was always glued to it. I was so fascinated by weather forecasting, and so I'm just a big radar watcher. And it was just a little disconcerting that what my weather app was saying was going on in Negril and showing actually wasn't. And so I think that to the point of it's like we can't always trust what authorities are telling us, and the importance of our own experience with things, I think, has never been more important. And trusting ourselves, which is something we've really been encouraged to give up, our own autonomy, authority to alleged experts, but that's not always right. And so our own experience is really important.
And to add to that too, uh, that was a massive Category 5 hurricane that swept over Jamaica, and big cyclones like that, they have a lot of lightning, and for a cyclone, most of the lightning is right on the other side of the wall of the eye. And, so I this is just another little example of this, is that I we had some really insane footage. So some people flew in of the eye, and so I reposted that on X, and I said, "Right behind those clouds, there are walls of plasma," and had, like, a few of these kind of, higher follower accounts saying, like, "You're full of shit, like, what are you talking about?" Like, what all of that, pseudoscience, whatever. And then just like a couple days afterwards, because this is a pretty fast feedback loop, that satellite imagery confirmed that that hurricane has some of the highest lightning density exactly behind that eye wall ever seen in a hurricane. So a lot of it is uh like, you know, competitive, like mono e mono stuff and not wanting someone else to be successful, but some of it's also just like being ignorant as to this, and then also like a terminology aspect of like they're not, when I say plasma, they're thinking something else. I don't really know, but there does seem to be this this like non-coherent vibration and resonance with a fairly large group of people in society that just simply don't get it. And I don't know what's going to happen, what's going to shift them into like what's actually happening here on Earth. because non-coherence, Eileen can talk about that for days. So, I mean, it's not, you don't want to be non-coherent and chaotic in general.
Well, I think the temptation is to run us into getting Eileen to speak to us of non-coherence, but if it's okay, I might even run into I wanna go as deep as we can if that's okay. Can we get Eileen potentially to bring us into your worldview on plasma, actually? Can we go there,
Mm.
Eileen?
Yeah, well, what to kind of echo what Stefan was saying, first of all, like when I first started researching plasma, and I was starting to understand that the body had an electrical system and that the magnetic field of the human body was actually a bioplasma. I tried to find some physicists to talk to about it. And I had people who were, very learned people with PhDs who told me that plasma was only something that happened in very hot environments like the sun or stars. And so this whole idea that I was talking about was nonsense. But at the same time, I was finding technologies that were using cold plasmas. In fact, there was one evening when I was putting my son to bed. And when I first started learning about plasma, my kids were like 8 and 12. So I started teaching them all about it too. And I was putting my 8-year-old to bed, and he said to me, "Mom, could plasma help with wound healing?" And I was like, I don't know. Like, what makes you say that? And he said, I don't know. I was just thinking about it and it seemed logical. And so I went and I looked it up. And sure enough, it can be a sterilizing agent. And actually, devices had been created that could speed wound healing, which I found very interesting. So there are all kinds of cold and room temperature plasmas. Even our atmosphere is a diffuse plasma. And so even people who were allegedly experts on this thing didn't recognize all of the different ways that plasma can express itself and show up in our day-to-day life.
Whoa. That, yeah, I mean, it brings the vibration conversation into a very different, into very different form because all of a sudden, if even the atmosphere that we're living in is considered plasma, then now there's a medium through which Stefan, anything to add there, bro?
Yeah. One interesting thing about the atmosphere being plasma is that in general, the troposphere where we live is very resistive. It's very high density. The density decreases as you go up. But of course, there's like some ions floating around. There's going to be a little bit more if you're near like the ocean. But we see interesting things, for example, often before land-based earthquakes, where you don't have an ocean to absorb this information, the ocean being very conductive, is that all of a sudden the conductivity of the boundary layer, the surface layer where we live, like rises dramatically. So there is this interesting aspect of we live in the densest part of the atmosphere, but in general, it's fairly resistive. But if it was to ionize, things would get wild really quick. And anyone that has lived through an earthquake probably has felt some of that energy come up from the earth and ionize partially the atmosphere. I kind of think of that as like a metaphor for right now, us plasma freaks are those small little plasma ions that are in the lower atmosphere. And there is this weak plasma to the boundary layer, for example, as Eileen mentioned, but overwhelmingly it's resistive. But if we were all to wake up to this reality, what would happen if we all ionized? There'd be so much more energy and freedom of expression and new connections being made because plasma isn't just it's not just charged particles flying around, they form coherence and structure to them.
Because
So
that
it's
was
really
gonna
interesting.
because that was gonna be one of the queries, I guess, is because it sounds quite stable the way that it is already set up with its high resistivity, right? But if it becomes overly ionized, then stability is still afforded in the order of the mechanisms that are in there, or not really? Like, does it become unstable, and maybe that's why it's not overly ionized?
It it forms different stability and structural regimes. So in
Right.
this example, which I'm using also a metaphor for the awakening of human consciousness, is that you would have this sudden ionization event. and all that would suddenly lift off the Earth because now it's electromagnetic and it would shoot out to space. And there is where it form like structure and coherence and start to interact with the magnetic field and stuff. It wouldn't stay though in the boundary layer close to the surface. And then, I mean, some would, and then it would deionize. But I just kind of get the sense that's where we are vibrationally. Like there's some people that figured out how to maybe pull energy in or internally generate it or something. So we're these very highly vibrational particles floating in this more resistive sea. But they're, with an earthquake example, it's the earth that causes this sudden ionization and then everything raises up. Or with a very powerful solar storm or something, you can even get a ground level enhancement where there's so many solar particles coming in, it will cause the overall atmosphere to increase in ionization. And maybe with a super flare, it can be significant enough to like really cause a severe, like a powerful ionization event. This is something that you won't really read about in like a geophys or geology textbook because no one thinks about the lower atmosphere as being a potential plasma. Again, as Eileen said, it's a very weak plasma, but it could be a very strong plasma because of its density. It just requires the energy.
Have you ever been in a thunderstorm or, a thunderstorm is approaching and your hair stands up? I don't know,
The
Amrit, that
static.
probably doesn't happen to you, but
Well, I'm trying to grow this beard just so I can start to develop some sensitivities in this space.
I've definitely had my hair all stand up, and when the air becomes ionized in a thunderstorm. Certainly if you go, part of the reason why they say go bathe in the forest or go
The
to the ocean
waterfalls, yeah.
is because it's a more ionized environment and it
Well,
feeds our own plasma bodies.
it's interesting as well because Stefan before was talking about lightning in these walls of plasma, and it's interesting because when I've had you on the podcast before, you talked about how our entire electrical system is there. You mentioned like again when you brought in plasma, you didn't leave electricity out of the conversation when you started defining plasma for us. It seems like within plasma, there's well. I'm going to conflate two ideas at once, and hopefully, I'm not doing it a disservice. But there's like light. Both of you are aware that light is traveling through plasma. It seems, but then also, I mean, tuning for like sound is also moving through here. Light does travel faster than sound. Maybe that speaks to but there's a thing here. So, do we really need to start to square our heads on plasma as a medium to really start to understand both of your bodies of work in terms of the influences of the light bodies beyond us? And also the lights and the sounds and the vibrations in and around all of us. Do you reckon that's a pretty good foundation stone here?
I think it could be helpful to describe like the different sort of modes of plasma because it takes on
Let's go.
different shapes and different expressions.
Please, yeah.
So when it's in arc mode, that's a plasma welder or lightning or the spark you get from your cat or a doorknob. When it's in dark current mode, that's like how if it's weak in our atmosphere or even in our upper atmosphere. But if we get a coronal mass ejection and there's more electric current coming from the sun, then the upper atmosphere will go into glow mode, which is when we see northern lights. And it will also form sheaths. It forms boundary layers. So the biofield, right? I always show my little torus here, is bounded by a double layer plasma membrane. So it forms toruses, it forms spheres. Stefan and I did a thing about ball lightning. That's also a plasma. Right. So, and then there are the cold plasmas that they're using in technology that have different applications. So, Stefan, did I miss anything? Are there other modes?
Oh, I'm sure there's law modes that we don't really know about because we only have our observations from Earth and then in situ observations in the solar system heliosphere, and then the most basic observations from Voyager 1 and 2 just outside the heliosphere, still in the transition zone. And we basically take those in situ observations and also those in labs, and we apply them to the cosmological environment. But I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other,
Is
um,
space is space a plasma?
Yeah, like Birkeland currents are these twisting ropes of plasma that span the cosmos that could create the web. When you look at the way that everything is in the cosmos is connected, it looks like the way the brain is connected. So even our neural connections, our electric connections, are flowing as we observe plasma to flow.
Amazing. Is space a plasma as well? Is that sort of
Most of it. So you'll have different plasmas. So for example, we're in what's called the local interstellar cloud, and then there's this other plasma bubble that we're going to be passing into. This is like at the interstellar scale called the G cloud, and our solar system's moving towards it. And they're created by different stars, and every star has its own ionization profile, what type of light it emits, the frequency, just the sheer amount and such. So you can have different zones in interstellar space where one can be very hot and low density, and then another one can be colder and denser. And how does that affect our heliosphere and such? And so the hot, low density one will have more plasma, and then the cold, high density one will be less plasma, more neutral gas. But there's always an interchange where a neutral gas atom, it's neutral because it hasn't ionized, it's not interacting with the electromagnetic field. It will then sometimes get ionized and then it'll deionize once again. So everything at some point, if you kind of take time out of the equation, everything is a plasma. But if you introduce time, then some things like are plasma, then they're not plasma, then they go back and forth. But um, it is certainly one of there's like the four states of matter that we know: solid, liquid, gas, and plasma, and they all really like interchange and move back and forth pretty frequently. So, but yeah, space is a plasma, and has a lot of different properties made up of the elements and the compounds, everything in that part of space. So if you have, let's say, a big stellar explosion like a supernova, but then a different part of space is dominated by red dwarfs, the actual makeup of those ions are going to be different. Maybe near the supernova, it's a whole bunch of carbon and oxygen and iron even, which requires more energy for it to be ionized. Whereas by the red dwarf, maybe it's just like, fairly like weakly ionized hydrogen and helium and stuff.
Inspired soul human beings, I wanted to take a moment to thank all of you that are subscribed to this podcast. Everything you see around here, Touchwood, is powered and empowered by your subscription to this channel. None of this would be possible without you. It is a total co-creation. To all of you that haven't yet subscribed, please do take a moment. As I'm saying the word subscribe, the button below is lighting up in the colors of the Inspired Evolution. Please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon. Join the community, join the movement, spreading love, positivity, and wisdom like this together around the planet. Thank you so much in advance for your support. And while we're on the topic of community, join us on the inside, the Inspired Evolution Community Circle, affectionately known as The Circle. Come join us once a month. Guests come on and answer your questions live and interactive in an online Zoom call. Come on and get all of your questions answered from these incredible luminaries. We've got Stefan Burns coming up. We've got on 3i Atlas, come ask your questions. We've got Greg Braden coming. Lots of incredible guests. Once a week, we also gather in meditation. We gather in community sharing experiences, live community experiences. There's yoga, there's breath work, a lot of cool stuff coming on, numerology workshops, all sorts of things, man. Come on, check us out inside the community. At the time of this recording, we're doing a giveaway for having reached 300,000 subscribers. Again, thank you all for your subscription, your love, your support, as I was mentioning earlier. We're giving back free astrology readings. We're giving away mentoring sessions. There's a year-long retreat to the Gene Keys. There's all sorts of stuff that's available to you. Money off retreat. There's so many cool things for the giveaway for 300,000 subscribers. You can go into the running by joining the community at inspiredevolution.com/300K. If you join us now for this month, I think it's $1 to enter. So come join us. And part of the giveaway is to come connect to community and take that word connection and really feel the connection, Touchwood, inside the community container, whilst also going into the running for all of these incredible experiences as well that are available to you. So come join us on the inside. We'd love to welcome you here into the circle. Back to the episode. It seems like there's a lot of, when you brought in time like that, I couldn't help but reflect on, again, this is where it starts to lead into the spiritual nature and our awarenesses of our work, and, time being this construct for us to be able to have an experience in this human experience that we call life. And then, yeah, I know it starts to, then it's like, oh, are we leaving science? And it's like, no, hang on a second. One of the key things in there I wanted to tune into then is even the way you described it over time, because there probably is an awareness, and maybe I'm jumping a couple of legs ahead to sort of say that I'm sure given enough time, all the energies come back into finding a homeostasis, surely, right? Like everything will find its place and settle, right? Even the asteroids, people say, we're potentially even a planet that Jupiter performs like this function as a mini sun, and maybe had an impact on whatever this was planet, and that turned into, anyway, there's many theories. But one of the interesting things there is there are that's found, like the asteroid belt has found its homeostasis. Like it lives now in that state quite comfortably. There is an asteroid belt there, blitzed to smithereens, whatever it was, but it's there, hanging out, doing its thing, very comfortably balanced. I mean, there's a question to be asked in this space in particular is, we're tuning our fields. Yeah, there's lots of external influences that are happening to us. I mean, we tune into your channel regularly, Stefan, like Eileen is devoted to your channel as well in terms of tuning in. There's all these consistent influences that we're under. But then also, Eileen, we have the ability to work with these energies in real time. And so I'm sure there's some people tuning in, which is like, do I need to do the work or won't I just naturally settle? But then also there's an argument to be made to how to actually support your field through tuning forks when these external influences that Stefan's referring to are hitting us. Can we get your download on that, Eileen?
Mhm. Well, so when we think about the torus that is our own field, so our body has an electrical system. We have electric current running through us, and therefore we have a magnetic field around us, which is the same as the aura or the human energy field. I just use the term biofield, but it's the same thing. And we all learned in grade school, right, that anything that had electric current running through it had a magnetic field around it. So I came across the biofield really through hands-on work, through bouncing sound off of the body, bouncing sound off the atmosphere around the body, like sonar, like radar, like LIDAR, and came across this structure, came across the boundary, and at the same time came across plasma, and it all kind of came together for me. Initially, I thought that the field was smooth on the outside, like an apple. And then one day, I got insight and I realized that it was actually banded like a pumpkin. And then I found this model, and this is just a physics toy, but it does actually have 12 bands. And that's what I saw in my mind's eye, that it had 12 bands. I also realized that each of the 12 bands was comprised of 12 strands, like fiber optic light cables. When I was a kid, these fiber optic lights came out. And so what that leads to is 144 illuminated strands circulating through our central channel. And I know some people have talked about this idea about DNA having 144 strands and them not all being active. So in this realization that the torus had these segments, if you look at it from the top down, you see this 12 around 1 model. And there's lots of places we see the 12 around 1, the 12 disciples of Christ, the 12 knights of the round table, the 12 cranial nerves, right? That also the 12 houses of the zodiac. And I started working with an apprentice who's also an astrologer, and got the bright idea to make a 12-foot circle and pull up a chart next to it, and then proceed through it to see if the luminaries would appear.
The planets and the moons and the sun and the
all the luminaries that are in your chart, right? Because I think sometimes it's really hard for people to grasp that the stars could be so far away and yet influence us the way that they appear to in astrology. And you two both know a lot about astrology, enough to know that it's a science. It's a deep and ancient science based on pattern recognition.
Enough to get ourselves into enough trouble. Sorry for interrupting, Eileen.
So sure enough, we did. We found that when we entered into the biofield with this particular lens of making it reflect the birth chart, we found all of those luminaries within the biofield. And so if you think of the stars are the part of the furthest part of yourself that you can see, but that there are actually electromagnetic nodes within your own electromagnetic field, suddenly that brings the influence of the luminaries much closer. That if you are electromagnetic, if this environment is all electromagnetic, right? Everything is the electromagnetic spectrum that we perceive, that our own biofields actually hold the imprint of our birth and how these luminaries actually inform our own electromagnetic system.
Oh man, I could hear you talk about this forever. Because I mean, with the like Jyotish, the study of astrology in Sanskrit, the word Jyot means light, and Ish means scientific study of. Yeah, so it's literally the scientific study of, and it's astrology in Vedic astrology. It's called Jyotish. It's like studying the stars and the heavens, and like trying to understand how those lights impact our lights and our inner light. Can I get into the weeds with you a little bit here? When you're tuning into people's like astrological chart, let's just use that and keep running with that example because I know there's many different models here. But with the astrological chart, like with the tuning forks, are you going into certain parts of their biofield and like different forks are activating at different densities and frequencies, and you're associating those to the planet? Like how are you actually what's going on here?
Yeah, well, in biofield tuning, we just use a handful of forks. So it's not like, oh, this frequency, I don't need like the frequencies of the planets in order to find them. I just need the person's chart and a layout to access it. And as you go through the houses, you can feel the energy of each house. And when we've done this with people who are really sensitive, even if there aren't luminaries in that particular house, there's a particular feeling, there's a particular energy, there's a particular energy at cusps. There you can feel the oppositions. When you look at your birth chart and you're like, look at all these red lines, these oppositions. I had a really interesting experience tuning my own chart because I have both the Sun and Mercury conjunct at 22 degrees of Libra in my 10th house. And when I was tuning my own chart and I got to that place, I felt all of this rub right there, which I thought was odd. I was like, but I thought that the Sun and Mercury got along. Like, what is this rub here? And then Mustafa, the person that I developed this with, he said, that's because you have Saturn at 22 degrees of Aries in perfect opposition. That's where there is a red line across my chart. And so I was feeling this without having any understanding of what it was. And then discovering that it was this hard aspect that I was feeling. And so what's so cool is you can stick a fork in either end. And when I did that, there was this feeling of like that tension breaking and it going from being sort of feeling like this to relaxing up into an arc. But I was like, oh, so maybe these hard aspects that are in people's charts can be softened, can be resolved, can be integrated more through this approach. So, I've taught this to a number of people. Everybody's able to find the same things. They're able to go in, cast a chart, move around it, feel the way that it brings greater harmony, just like when we do in biofield tuning, when we work in the field in more of the biofield anatomy map, the more standard approach. It has the same effect of releasing tension, essentially.
Amazing. I wanted to tune in there just because you touched on something about cusps that flagged a question that I had earlier, if that's okay to jump in. Stefan, as we move through different, like from one plasma field to another, I mean, some are probably completely indiscernible, which is why we're not aware that it's happening. But back to some of the examples you had before, there are probably some plasma fields as we move through into another environment, we can actually palpably feel it. Um, but it's just not visible. Like, what senses do we have to actually attune to the fact that, yeah, is there particular senses that are more apt to tuning into plasma, or is this we need tools and we need scientific instruments?
Yeah, I think at this point we start to go beyond the normal paradigm of science. I mean, one good example of different plasma fields would be the fact that this interstellar object is flying through our solar system. And it goes from a deeply low energy environment, which is interstellar space, and then becomes super, super active during perihelion. But it was showing signs of activity well beyond normal comets. This is 3I Atlas, of course. And that's going to change the vibrational makeup of our entire solar system. So, um, I mean, if we're already here talking about planets and charts and being born and all this, like there's a greater fundamental reality at play. We don't really need to. I think the traditional scientific paradigm is actually a little limiting here because you just kind of have to expand your awareness out into this, and intuition is always going to be kind of like nudging you and guiding you, and I feel like that's kind of the way forward. And you have to be fine not knowing everything, right? Like I don't claim to know everything there is about this stuff. It's just like, is there like a breadcrumb trail? Can I at least follow that and then wave back at people saying, hey, there's something here, but follow the breadcrumbs yourself? I think that's really what we can do. Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel that there's just a really big vibrational change occurring right now because of Three Eye Atlas, and it's come into our solar system. The sun's been very active. It's the solar maximum, also one of the strongest years ever for seismic energy release.
Wasn't there one
Um,
day where there was like 4 class M surges like all in one day or something? Sorry, I'm interrupting. Sorry, please continue. Sorry.
Yeah, we've had lots of days where there's been like tons of M flares, X flares. I mean, we just got through a big period with more than a dozen M flares over a few days and an X flare, and that sunspot group will rotate back around. So we're going through this like oscillation of like tons of activity, low activity. And I think of that too, if we go back to our atmosphere ionization that we talked about and the ionization of people and consciousness, that with this Santorini seismic swarm, which was caused from a magma intrusion. If everyone was told right from the get go, like we knew 100%, and everyone was told from the get go, hey, we just had a massive magma intrusion, one of the biggest we've ever seen, if not the biggest in recorded history. Oh, remember Thera 1600 BC when the entire island blew up? That could be happening soon, right? Like all those people are going to all of a sudden fly away and migrate because they're ionized, right? They're not free, and they're like, "Why am I sticking around here?" May, maybe, maybe it's like, I'm not one to lie, and I'm not encouraging that, but obviously, reality chose for there to be some of these oppositional forces to keep people in place. So I guess there's a better time we could say, or maybe for there to be a larger ionization event where then people will get sorted appropriately into the right places coherently. Because if everyone's just fly away from Greece, then what does that do, right? Collapses the economy and causes all these problems. But maybe at some point in the near future, we're going to be such a state where we can all ionize, you could say, and freely move around and create our new structures and communities and such. And it's not going to bring about collapse. It'll actually bring about real civilization. Because right now, what we don't have is real civilization. Let's just say that. And that I feel like is the vibrational shift that we're going through with just all these things. It's just bringing about like a complete paradigm shift. And yeah, it's just a feeling, right? So I can't give you like a hard and fast answer on this, but I just get this sense that this is kind of unfolding and that there's more to this than we know. And it connects to us at very, very deep levels.
Yeah,
Not
it's
just like the standard, oh, cellular voltage gradients or whatever. It's like it goes way beyond that.
well, it was interesting because I back in when I was doing even my undergrad in engineering, um, I would speak to a couple of my favorite lecturers, and I was just like, it was obvious that they were spiritual. It was obvious, like, and these were some of the most like well-regarded lecturers within the engineering. And I, after I built a bit of rapport with them, towards the end, I was like, hey, like, it's obvious that you really have a lot of faith. I'm being Amrit, obviously, and I don't think everybody talks like this, but anyway, so obviously you got a lot of faith. Um, but you're one of the most respected, like you've dozens of, anyway, like you're really respected in engineering and science. And I always got some form of response to effectively this same, yeah, some form of this response, which was once you start growing and growing and growing in science, yeah, you start to understand that science also has its own boundary problem and that it's growing into something with its field of awareness. But what's it growing into? what's already there. And then you start to realize, oh, there's a lot more there than I can start to measure and see, so on. And these are some like really extremely grounded individuals. Like, a lot of the world that we look around us is built by the research of some of these people. Eileen, I wanted to dive in there because there was a piece that Stefan was referring to in terms of tuning in to 3i Atlas, especially as this December 19 horizon starts to approach us in terms of it's going to be super, well, closest. Key thing in there is a lot of people have a lot of fear around it with 3i Atlas, but then you've got a few people and something like, oh, when I tune in, I kind of actually feel like there's not a lot of fear around it. It's like actually something to love. It's like an interesting freak. What have you been feeling into? Tuning in, pun intended, but how do I avoid it? Tuning in to 3i Atlas.
Well, before I answer that, I do want to come back to what you just had asked before about feeling plasma, feeling
Oh,
these
please.
things,
Yeah.
right?
Sorry. Yeah, please feel
Because
free to
because
move.
this is also, but feeling 3i Alice is also the same sort of feeling thing. So when Stefan was here visiting me in Vermont, I took him to a place where I know that there's a telluric current, also known as a dragon line.
Can you
And
describe that for those that don't know what a telluric current is?
yeah, so telluric current, this is so interesting. Like a lot of your audience has probably heard of ley lines or dragon lines or song lines and how cathedrals are built where they cross and that sort of thing, right? But what I discovered sort of deep into my plasma research was this concept called telluric currents, which are really kind of the same thing. They're flows of electromagnetic energy that flow along the surface of the Earth. And you can identify them because of the way vegetation grows in them. So I had a very skilled dowser come to my property and identify this very large, wide telluric current that flows along the spine of the Green Mountains. And so, in order for a current like that to be contained, just like a river needs banks, these telluric currents have double layer membranes as well. And Stefan had some equipment and we did some measurements and we were feeling what it felt like to cross that boundary layer, right? So a boundary layer, a plasma membrane, is an area where there is more electromagnetic charge. There's a density, and then so that when you step through that boundary layer into this place where there's a flow of current, you can feel it in your own body, but only if you're paying attention, right, Stefan? You felt it. Yeah. And so, even the phenomenon that we're working with in the magnetic field around the human body, that you can feel with your hands or a tuning fork areas where there is a greater density. So our own human bodies have the capacity to sense the charge, basically. Right? There's a lot of hands-on healing methods that do the same. So we have the capacity to sense far more than what we learn in school. And so even something like feeling into 3i Atlas, I think that many people have been feeling into it. And like, where does that feeling sense come from? What one of our senses is that? Um, from a sound and frequency and resonance perspective, this is creating a sound in our neighborhood of space that is a new sound. It's a new vibration. It is a new resonance that has entered into the song, right? So no matter what, in the way that everything moves about, all of a sudden there's this whole new vibration, this whole new song, this whole new set of information, right? That is affecting the music of the spheres that we are subconsciously guided by. And I think people are going to interpret it differently. I know that the Jamaica hurricane was the day before perihelion. And I also know that with my friends, and I don't know if this is true for you guys, but I've seen a lot of people having a really hard time with a lot of different stuff, things sort of blowing up, changing, but also people saying to me, I feel like I dropped into my center in a way I never have before. And sometimes, so it might be creating adjustments in people and even the way that their soul is landed in their body. So I think that there's so much here that's possible, and it also depends on the individual how they might be impacted by this new resonance in our environment.
Hey there, inspired souls. It really is a very interesting time to be alive, as both Eileen and Stefan are pointing to. If you wanted to understand how to navigate some of these times better for yourself based on how some of these astral bodies are behaving, and you feel like an astrology reading could be deeply of support to you at this time, put a link on screen, amritsandu.com/reading, and also a link in the description below to book in a reading if you feel called to support your path at better understanding yourself and what's coming up for you specifically in these times, touch wood. So again, that's amritsandu.com/reading, link in the description below. Back to today's episode.
Just to add to that,
Yeah,
it's
that's
interesting, your nodal idea that you mentioned about the planets being nodes and Birkeland currents. And so, yeah, you have these electric currents that not only connect the sun and the planets together, but different stars together, different interstellar groups together, and then different galaxies together. It's all fractal. It even goes fractal down to our neurons, right? Um, so how does this interstellar object passing by the Mars node, the Sun node, and the Jupiter node affect it? It's like a software update, I feel like. And what's also interesting about Three Eye Atlas is that it seems to be starting to turn to a gold color now. It's too early to say definitively, but there are some observations now it's starting to turn gold. And it's coincidentally happening as it's moving into the constellation of Leo, which is interesting. But it went from a dark red color, indicating a lot of organics, so organic molecules, to a green color at the water line of 2.5 AU, indicating that it all of a sudden had like kind of this explosive activity to it and a lot of off gassing and such. And if it is transitioning to gold, that means it's now effectively depleted of a lot of this material that it had coming in.
Potentially discharging
And
it.
yeah, so like a full discharge of that. And then the spectroscopic data that we got from pre-perihelion is also like with the specific elemental compounds and ratios and stuff, is indicating that it's very likely that it used to be like a short period comet orbiting around its star, and therefore maybe did hundreds or even thousands of like orbits around its star before being ejected out. So we have tons of comets, and there are these interstellar visitors because they're also going out to interstellar space, but they're still bound to our star. But I think of them and some trans-Neptunian objects as being these messengers of some of this interstellar consciousness and knowledge and wisdom, and then delivering it to the nodal network for us, which then gets dropped down to us, right? And so Interstellar Object 3 at Atlas is interesting because it had this whole life, and this idea, and there's a lot of evidence for this, that it had this whole life around another star. And then it's like a wise elder being flung off, put into hibernation, and then like releasing all that information, knowledge, consciousness, and wisdom at once as it moves through our system, specifically going to Mars and Jupiter, two of the main um, masculine archetypes, which is really interesting. Um, so it seems like some sort of software update, and people are already feeling it and connecting to it, and I, I'm really excited for it. I don't feel any fear or anything of that nature from it,
I
but that's just me.
Yeah, it's interesting, Touchwood, because not to sort of say that this is my world and you're all just living in it, Touchwood, but the last time you were here, well, no, sorry, Touchwood, last time you were here, Stefan, we were talking about through Atlas's movement through the constellation of Virgo, and like all around me, people were coming up with stuff. I got food poisoning and I remember talking to Eileen about it. She was like, olives? And I was like, yeah, I got food poisoning from olives. She's like, how do you get food poisoning from olives? It's not even like a meat or a protein. But yeah, I got food poisoning from olives. And it was incredible, the stuff that shifted. And it really brought me back into like a much more like full Einie with my body in terms of like the respect as well that was required. And it was really, really helpful. And it's interesting. I don't want to, again, but like right now, this is like a whole new creative like opening for the inspired evolution to be sitting with you two in a three-way conversation as opposed to one. And then hearing what you're saying, I feel like I'm in the babushka doll moment, which is like it's coming through Leo, it's turning gold, it's activating expression. And it's like, well, this is a new expression of the podcast. Again, I know it's not just my little bubble. We all share fields and worlds and universes, but it is pretty profound. There's something to be said about the human condition, and this is a question to both of you. The unknown has a lot of fear and uncertainty around it. Because when it comes through Atlas, both of you sort of spoken to it just then. Is like in terms of like actually when we both tune into it, there's not a lot to fear actually. But when you look in from the outside, there is a little bit of like this fear that we carry. And I guess I'm sort of bringing that question into the field as well because, I mean, both of your works are widely accepted within the domains that they are, but then there are also domains outside that kind of go, like there's a bit of misunderstanding of your work as well. And then then this fear conversation opens up. Not really sure if there's much of a question there rather than just a remark upon fear and the dynamic of uncertainty and fear, and just to hear you both share on it.
Mhm. Well, I was listening to Pam Gregory this morning, and she was talking about her experience when Three Eye Atlas went past Venus,
Mm.
and she had a very visceral, physical experience with green light and so much love, and right. But Pam is such a being of love and such a messenger of love that it's not surprising that that was her experience, right? Because everything is going to go through the lens of our own field and our own fears. I've really come to see that living comfortably with uncertainty is one of the hardest things for people to do. And there is this high level of uncertainty. What is it? Where did it come from? Is it even real? How's it going to affect us when it comes close to Earth? Right. So there's just a lot of uncertainty. So that people who are okay with uncertainty and can just stay in curiosity are going to have a very different experience than people who are just afraid in general and looking at it and then experiencing it through that lens.
Is fear one of the largest distortions in people? Is that the fundamental distortion in people's fields as you're working with them, Eileen, that you see?
Yeah, it creates like a double beat, and so it creates a blur really in our ability to see the world, because if our body is here in the middle of our field and our electrical current is jumping, we're not going to perceive what is going on clearly, and fear will often become a self-fulfilling prophecy. It will attract exactly what it is that you're afraid of.
Yeah, there was a big shift I had at some point in my journey when I realized worrying is actually like praying for bad shit to happen. I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, god damn, like, I really need to work on this worry piece. Now I'm worried about my worry. It's just like,
Yeah.
but it was interesting as well. I just wanted to check in really quickly because last you mentioned, it was interesting. You said relax. And then, but your hands moved upwards. For those that are tuning into the audio version, you would have missed that. But yeah, your hands chunked upwards as you referred to relax, which I thought was kind of interesting. Can I just double
Right.
click on that for a moment? Because for most people, and I mean, yeah, for most people, relax means like come down. But for you, it's an upward movement. Can you just
Mm.
unpack that? What?
Sure. Well, when we are afraid, we contract. And when we are calm and well and curious, we expand. So I think I was just sort of speaking to the expansion that happens when you're not in the contraction of fear.
Yeah, beautiful. Really, yeah, amazing to receive that download. Thank you. Yes,
And I think
Stefan.
it's unavoidable that fears are going to get brought up because it's it's always just internal. So I mean, this object coming in, I don't sense it coming in with like this frequency of fear. Now, if it was headed right for Earth, it's like, well, a little bit of a different story, okay? But it's not
Yes.
headed right for Earth, okay? But it's all in the eyes of the beholder, and if there's something internal, and it's a lot of mental stuff too, then they're going to interpret it a certain way, and fear, Eileen, you say is the biggest distortion in the field. My experience at the Biofield tuning, my work with you, all that 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 feels very true and resonant. But I don't think fear itself is like a bad thing because it seems to be this catalyst of awakening. Um, and I mean, to be an animal, you're a tiny little marsupial or something in the forest, right? You're gonna be afraid of like the dinosaurs or the much bigger Wolverine or whatever. So it's actually quite incredible as humans that we've removed so much fear from ourselves and our fields, even though put me up against a wolf and I mean, I hope I come out on top, but I don't got the big incisors, I clip my nails, so it's actually quite remarkable that we have been able to transmute so much fear into much higher vibrations. And and there is this duality to life, at least part of reality. There's a duality to it, and we kind of need this to do that, or we need some suffering to then have the change and do the awakening process, and the self-actualization process gets triggered. Um, so when it comes to people saying like, we want a world of no suffering, I'm like, I don't want a world of excessive suffering because I wouldn't be who I am without some suffering. But excessive suffering, yeah, no one needs that. But it seems at least this current point in time that you don't have certain like catalyst reactions occur without some suffering, without some fear. And that will actually then lead you to your higher spirit, your higher expression, which is more grounded in love. So Three Eye Atlas, let's say, if it is making people fearful, it's not doing that intentionally. It's not like the sun is shining just to create shade on the ground, right?
Mm.
But it does it regardless. That's kind of how I see it.
It's inherently raising. It's a very wise point that you raise about the suffering and the challenge. Touchwood. Yeah, we did in our community. We did an exercise. This being 2025, a 9-year, and us moving into 2026, which is a 1 year numerologically. And we had Robert Edward Grant on the episode to speak to that quite deeply. The transition from going 9 to 1, like a whole 9-year cycle, starting up. And when you speak to Robert, as you guys probably aware, like, the whole universe turns into like a simulation in a matrix. It's really trippy. Um, but it's, yeah, in that we also said we did a bit of like a whole deep like ritual of like intention setting for the next 9 years that we were potentially able to program in. And one of the key things in there was just be mindful what you wish for, because if you ask for it to be super rosy, like, are you going to be picking up lessons along the way as well? And you're here to learn and grow, And it was nice to sort of feel into the texture of the community, just being able to have such mature conversations about it as well, because I'm sure there's spaces where it's like, oh, I just want everything to be super smooth, and but we are, there's a wisdom in there. I couldn't help but feel a little bit ungrounded just before because as you were talking, both of you, there's this piece now where I'm just going to say it. Is Three Eye Atlas a catalyst for awakening? I mean, just bear with me. Just bear with me. I know how that sounds because it's coming through. You talked about the software upload, Stefan. Yeah. And then, Eileen, you're talking about our charts and how we can literally feel the luminaries in our field. And I mean, we are having, and I was like, we are having this, but we are having this conversation. More and more people are opening up too. I mean, even if we just call it a conversation around light, vibration, and frequency, I mean, this conversation's happening. More and more conversations like this are happening. Is it too much to conflate that potentially it is a catalyst for us waking up to other things?
I'll just say quickly that it doesn't have to be. Like, it doesn't have to be, but I think there's an opportunity that it can be, and not everyone will take the opportunity.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Stefan and I had the opportunity to have a 3-hour conversation with Robert Temple. And we were talking to him about plasma, sort of an OG plasma fellow. And he was talking, he brought up, not to harp on the fear element, but about how in the past it has been perceived that when Earth has passed through the tail of a comet, that it has brought energies to this realm that have been disruptive or maybe even disease causing. and he speaks to viruses, But for me, who looks at everything in terms of waves, I would just say it's new information that our bodies have never had the opportunity to process before. And if a system is resilient and adaptive, it can manage a wave moving through that's unfamiliar. It can adapt to it. If a system is rigid, is already struggling, and this new information passes through it, it could be very disruptive. So I think it's really so much a matter of each individual and their individual experience of experiencing this vibrational information that is new to our systems.
It's interesting that you use the word realm. I've just found myself naturally stumbling over it a little bit, a lot more recently to describe the experience of reality itself. I never used to use it. Um, do you use that word with some intentionality, Eileen?
Well, to be honest, I'm not entirely certain of the shape and nature of the realm. Like I don't know. And I'm
But you
always
use,
taking in info.
but you use that word. It seems to describe, yeah.
Yeah, because it's such a neutral thing, because I think everyone can agree that we're in a realm. So it's a very neutral Libra kind of term. I'm here with you guys, but I was also earlier this week with a friend of mine who's a big proponent of flat Earth. And I was like, my followers are gonna be like, Eileen, what side are you on? Like, you're hanging out with the space reporters and the space busters. But but I'm very much a student and very much come from a place of I'm still learning, I'm still taking in plenty of information. I haven't made up my mind. I just love to look at all angles of a particular process, and so I just use the word realm because it just is so neutral and it speaks to my kind of neutral place. Like we can all agree we're in a realm, so that's my word of choice.
Inspired souls, living beings, what are you taking away from today's episode? You're obviously enjoying this episode, so please do give it a thumbs up and a like, and leave your questions in the comments below. Stefan and Eileen are both active on YouTube, and you might just get a response directly from them to your questions and your comments. What is your big takeaway? And let me know in the comments below as well if this format of having more than one guest talking about a particular topic, this vibrational frequency awareness, as above, so below, and how we can work with these energies touch, which was something that was inspired for me to create. Let me know how this works for you. Would you like to see more episodes like this? Let me know in the comments below. Here in loving service, your brother, Amrit. Back to the episode. Do you agree that we're in a realm, Stefan?
Sure. I mean, I'm actually broadcasting to you from beyond the ice wall. So we do have Starlink here. It's pretty great.
It's yeah. Maybe this is why your YouTube channel is growing so fast, because it's from a whole nother realm.
Yeah, I'm actually on the spaceship.
Got the advanced downloads. I love it. I love it, guys. I mean, I wanted to open up a bit of a space just to sort of we discussed the importance of how you two view each other's work, but I wanted to understand the importance of how you two sort of see if there was a world that sort of approaches more of an open awareness of where both of your works are like nested into much more mainstream view. What sort of world do you think we're living in? What are some of the shifts that must have had to have happened to occur for people to be more open to space, impact, influence on the individual, and then, we can actually work with our fields and actually come back into deeper and deeper levels of harmony by working with our fields? What needs to shift, and what would that world look like?
Should I go first?
I'll
Um,
just
I'll
say
let you
one
fly
thing really
over.
quick, which is I think that in some aspect we're going to have to realize that we have much less control over our external environment than we think we do. Right? We think the world's very safe and stable, and oh, that seismic swarm is just a tectonic event. Actually, it's a magma intrusion, right? A massive one. But we have much more control over our inner environment and like our own self verification and that whole process. And that'll be exciting to see. And because it, at the end of the day, there's some cataclysm, like there's nothing you can do about it really, but we're going to go beyond that anyway. So how are you reformatting your energy information, your frequency? And then when our little blab bioplasma blob pops out of our body or something, right? You take that with you. Um, but I'm curious to hear what Eileen says.
Hmm. Well, I think that we need people to be more curious. There's a tendency to think, oh, everything I learned in school is all there is to learn, or anything that I know or I believe. And people get very attached to their beliefs and their stories, their own self limiting beliefs, their own beliefs about the limitations of life and what is possible and what is real. So I think open-mindedness and curiosity is very important, but it's not easy to be open-minded and curious when you've experienced a lot of trauma or that you live in a lot of fear. And that's what my work is, about helping to relieve unnecessary suffering. I'm not here to relieve all suffering, but only that which people are suffering from things that I can help through biofield adjustments. Um, I was very certain that doing biofield tuning at a distance was impossible. And I was very arrogant and very closed minded about that until I tried it for the first time and I discovered that it was possible.
Can attest.
So if we're walking around with blinders on being like, "This is impossible, this is so," and we're really attached to our arrogance, then we're not open to the possibilities of what else is possible. So, I think helping people to heal from trauma enough to settle down the fear, that they are at liberty to be curious and open-minded, about what is possible here is really important.
This brings us to a topic that I really wanted to discuss with both of you here today. Because Greg Braden said this when he came on the podcast recently. He said, you want to be open, but you need to be mindful not to be gaping open, which was, I think, put quite well. So I've sort of flagged that and kept it with me, I guess, touch wood. One of the interesting pieces there is there does seem to be am I going to call it a boundaries problem? I don't want to call it a boundaries problem, but it's just going to be easy to speak to it that way. I'm a little bit curious in terms because for some people, like all this energy influencing them as the individual, yeah, and then for some people, it's like, oh, but I can. How when is it like we mentioned self fulfilling prophecy earlier? Like Stefan, you're reporting on things that are happening, but then bringing that into deeper levels of people's awareness, then obviously there's going to be a symbiosis to like them being aware that this is happening to them as well, right? So there's like they're coming to meet the energies midway as well. And then all of it now purportedly like more is happening. And there's a boundaries problem here. Can you guys see what I'm speaking to a little bit, or am I still being too ephemeral? Like where does the influences end? I guess in astrology, we look at it this way: influence versus govern. Do these influences, these external vibrations, like how much of a dictate do they have on how we're feeling in any given moment, how we're navigating reality in this realm? Or are they just influencing? And yeah, have you guys, like both of your takes on that? Maybe we could start with Helene.
Well, I was just thinking that Stefan could probably speak to that because he gets a lot of comments in his videos
Yeah.
about people who claim to be feeling solar activity, what's going on, and that many of his listeners are feel very attuned to and very influenced by, or think they do anyway. So yeah,
Okay.
so I'm curious on Stefan's take on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's mindset because I mean, and how you express the energy because I'm looking and researching to the sun every day, the earth every day, all this stuff. And so I mean, there's also like we can't ignore your individual health and wellness, your bioelectric sensitivity, right? If you're really inflamed, then you're going to be more susceptible to this. Your endocrine system's just totally out of whack. But a lot of it's mental too. And when the sun is doing big solar flares, you better believe I'm like squatting heavy and deadlifting heavy at the gym. I'm not just like sitting around just letting that energy hit me and have nowhere to go. Now, not everyone needs to like load up the squat rack, but maybe you get like a big canvas out and just start painting like crazy. Or maybe the solution is just a really long walk. Or if you're someone that loves to cook, then you cook up a storm and invite a bunch of people over. Like there's so many ways to I see it as like if the sun is exploding with tons of energy, you should probably be exploding with something too. And if things are quiet, that's your time to rest and relax. Entering into resonance with this. And I think a lot of this is that people aren't in resonance with it, but they are in a different way. Because a lot of people are feeling, they're like, man, I just got hit with something. And then a day later, we have the big solar flare, explosion, everything. So there's multiple levels to it. And maybe that person, when they signed up for Earth School, they signed up to be just like the solar messenger and just to really feel those energies and process them. There's like multiple ways to do this. But again, excessive suffering is something I think that we should try to move beyond, right? This excessively suffering, I'm not here for that. I don't think Earth is here necessarily just to be a, a realm of excessive suffering. Um, though I'm also realizing that Earth is a little bit more malefic than we kind of like think. Interesting that
Yeah.
well, interesting about that is that Earth, Mars, and Saturn all have this basically the same tilt angle for rotation. So Jupiter is only like 3 degrees off. Venus is only like 1 or 2 or 3 degrees off. It's very minor, right? They're the two benefics. Meanwhile, Earth is 23.5 degrees, Mars is 25 degrees, I believe, and Saturn is 26 degrees. So there's different resonances across the solar system. Another one would be how Earth and Mars have the same rotation period. So effectively, I mean, Earth is 24 hours and Mars is like nearly 25. Um, and it's thought that Earth was once rotating actually like basically every 6 to 8 hours, but it was the influence of the moon that slowed it down. And then we all know about like the Venus Earth resonance being Fibonacci, and there's a whole bunch of different resonances. But yeah, it's like every planet has a little blend of some of the others in it. Like Jupiter and Saturn are both very large, so they have that going for them. But there's definitely like this energetic overlap that exists. And it is also important to like, what do you like, where your attention goes is where the energy goes. And so I've had some comments say, like, Stefan, you're creating these earthquakes. And I mean, I'm reporting on them and I'm reporting on what this activity looks like it's going to do. And then we have been pretty good with the forecasting for the big earthquakes, but I don't think I'm manifesting these. I think it's more so that I'm just like really in resonance with the earth and I'm effectively kind of getting the heads up before the thing happens. But it is a fine line. Um, because you don't want to, some people are trying to manifest like big cataclysmic disasters. Like they're like, bring it on. I want the reset. I want California to fall into the ocean. I want the movie 2012 to happen. I'm like, I don't know why you'd want that, but there are people like holding on to that resonance as well. And so Earth is just this playground with all these, and which one kind of rises to the top or I don't really have a good answer for you. I
Yeah,
just kind of
no,
feel all the
it's a
things.
very
I'm feeling
deep,
all the
but it's a very
feels.
deep,
Yeah.
it's a very deep
I
explanation because
I
yeah.
do have another thought on that too, and that just has to do with the relative stability and coherence of any individual field and its ability to buffer what's in the environment. Is that as your own field becomes more stable, more grounded, more coherent, your signal to noise ratio improves. There is a kind of ability to buffer. Uh, things like solar flares or other people's incoherent energies or even the collective vibe. Sometimes on Monday mornings, the collective vibe can be really off. Or if there's big tragedies, it tends to inform the collective field. And a lot of people suffer from world pain because they get informed and influenced by the energies around them. So everyone is going to experience these sorts of just coming back to the same as Three Eye Atlas, that everyone is going to experience these things differently depending on their own signal. and the strength and clarity of that signal too.
Hey there, inspired soul. If there's something deep within your heart and your heart's offering that you're yearning to create and bring into the world so that it can have an incredible impact out there in the world, we have together here at the Inspired Evolution what we call the Spiritual Entrepreneurship Council, affectionately known as the Council. Eileen's part of the council. Here's what she has to say about being part of the council.
If you're not hitting your target, it can be really helpful to just get someone else's eyes on your process. And actually, that's exactly what Amrit has done. Give me that reflective feedback to help me feel like I'm aiming better. He is so multidimensionally informed. He knows a lot about a lot of different things, from systems to astrology, human design, esoteric stuff. So I just really find him a wealth of knowledge and information. And just a few tweaks from Amrit has made a big difference, and we've definitely kind of changed the direction we've been going in, actually rather sharply. Amrit is yin and he's yang. He really delivers a lot of good information in a short amount of time. He's just got a good rhythm that makes it really easy to talk to him and to feel heard. Amrit really cares about delivering value, and that's really evident. I would absolutely recommend Amrit as a coach. He would be a wonderful coach for anybody's needs.
So if you have heart-based offerings like Eileen's to bring to the world, to have an incredible impact, an incredible ripple, to support the world, support humanity, and have the most fun and joy and impact whilst doing it, in your alignment, unlocking your mindset, supporting your creations forward out into the world, then apply. amritsandhu.com/call. Jump on a call. Let's have a conversation if you're the right fit for the council and the council is right for you. If you're feeling inspired, don't hesitate. Jump on. Let's have a conversation. And you could be one of the council. Yeah,
To add one final thing, just it can also be really simple. Like I met with my buddy. He's like, I really feel these solar flares and everything. And he's like, I don't know why. And it's like, wait, weren't you in like a motorcycle accident? Like, don't you have tons of metal in your body? He's like, oh yeah, it's probably the metal in my body. Like, I'm half cyborg already. I'm like, that's probably why, dude.
Got little
Yeah.
antennas built in.
Yeah.
It's I think this has matured us into a conversation around, I think, I called it a boundaries problem, but actually it's agency. The center is agency, finding our agency within it all. Yeah. Yeah.
And I get it because it can be difficult if like you're feeling this big wave of energy and like you have the sense of you need to kind of like utilize that. Like this happened many times. So I'm like tired. And I know I'll get more energy if I go on a walk, but then it's also like I'm already laying down with my eyes closing. So it's like, what do you choose? And that's also just like you have to kick yourself into it. That's the agency thing.
Yeah, well, there's these other elements to it as well. When sometimes I consider pendulums a lot, in terms of like how hard we swing in terms of mindset as well. You know, like especially when you open up to a certain body of work and no one thinks the way that you do. Yeah, then the pendulum's already got certain momentum to move in a certain direction, and then sometimes the pendulum does swing really hard before it comes back into some level of balance as well, because there is that to navigate in those elements there. Um, a question I had was collective awakening. We're talking a lot about coherence here today. Um, is it is it as simple as looking at it as we will awaken when like the least coherent also becomes more and more coherent? Is it literally like that simple a take on coherence and awakening, Eileen?
Mm. Well, I have been talking about this concept that I call spontaneous coherent emergence. And this speaks to cymatics. So if anyone's seen a cymatics video, a very basic one, where it's a physics experiment where you take a flat black metal plate called a Chladni plate, and you put salt or sand on that, and you put a speaker underneath it, and you run a specific frequency through it, it will generate a very specific pattern. So every frequency has a predictable pattern that gets generated. When you change the frequency, what happens is the pattern that is currently present dissolves into chaos. And it seems, everything seems completely incoherent and chaotic. But then very suddenly and very spontaneously, a new pattern will arise. And it kind of feels like we're in that space between notes where this old pattern and this mindset and this mentality and this illusion of separation that we've been in, and the structures that support that illusion of separation are starting to break down and going into uncertainty and chaos, right? There's a lot of chaos at the moment. But inherent in that chaos, and this chaos theory, is the order that is arising. So, and when that new order arises, it arises very spontaneously. It arises very suddenly. It's like all of a sudden there's this new pattern. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have this experience culturally. There's more and more and more people waking up, if you will. And I think if you were really going to boil it down to like what is awakening, I think it's seeing beyond the illusion of separation and realizing that all is one, that I am that. And this was another thing Pam Gregory was talking about today. And when you realize that I am that, that anything that's happening to that is also happening to me. And through that awareness of this sort of unity consciousness, if you will, a lot of the bad behavior of an incoherent, divided world is simply no longer supported anymore. I think this is what people are talking about ascending to the new earth, in this kind of coherent world where we treat each other with kindness and respect. I think that all of the autistic kids that we've been exposed to through the telepathy tapes and the fact that they can read minds makes that nobody can think bad thoughts or lie, right? So it's moving into from lie and chaos into truth and order and harmony. I think that, for the idealists among us, and I'm certainly one, that's the movement I see happening in myself and the world around me, and in my community at large, a real movement in that direction.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did couldn't help but reflect on that when I had Diane Hennessy Power here for the telepathy tapes, and how the telepathic lad said, "You don't get the abilities of what I've got in terms of being able to read minds by being dishonest." Because his mother turned to him and said, "Stop." He's like, "I can read your mind," and she goes, "Stop lying." And his comment was, "You don't get the powers that I have if you lie." And it was like, oh, like that. It was said in passing, but it really got me to slow down there. Stefan, is what Eileen referring to there, is that like a more ionized state? Is that what you're seeing when you're saying, like, potentially we get more ionized? Like, is that, or am I conflating an idea there?
No, I think it's like an apt metaphor. I often do my research into the science stuff to learn about how it can then translate over to some of these other ideas. Like a lot of my aha moments spiritually are from reading the research paper. And I was just talking to Dana Kipple, the alien girl, and she was saying the same thing. She's like, like writing this plasma book gave her all these aha ideas elsewhere because again, fundamentally, everything shares the same like framework, the same physics. So you can get your information on this from that. And a lot of these concepts here apply to that if you just know how to translate them. And so that's also a little bit of a skill to learn too. But yeah, I mean, none of us are perfect. I do my best to be completely 100% honest all the time because I see how it doesn't work out for people, or it just I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Even white lies. I mean, it has to be like a really crazy situation for me to do like a white lie. Um, like absolutely nuts. But I can't even think of the last time. But yeah, I hope that we're moving that direction because some people have no hesitation, absolutely none, and that's the problem. Is that a liar won't tell you that they're a liar, so you have to figure it out. It could take some time. Um, and I don't really know what to think of the telepathy tapes myself and all that, but, certainly there's something to all of that, the psi powers and out of body experiences. There's just too many reports to ignore that stuff. So that's why I am surprised when people just outright dismiss it because it's just like there's thousands of years of anecdotal evidence, and there have been, like, studies on this and stuff too, so the telepathy tapes, I think that is like a big study basically. So
Yeah.
there's something to it. You just gotta like just release control of what you think the world is, and that you can control everything externally, and know that the only thing you can really control is actually your internal environment. And then that's where all the demons are. So that's why it's scary because they're all inside you. And it's not about like denying them, but it's about, okay, I recognize you, but I don't give you power.
Is it too inappropriate to say, I'll put a link to Eileen's tuning forks in the show notes below at that point?
Well, I do have something to say about that because I realized something speaking about demons. And when we talk about someone and they say, his demons,
Mm.
or your demons, right? And what I've really come to see, and this took me a long time to come to this, is that the parts of us that feel like they are our demons are really just, in most cases, I would say, fractured parts of ourselves that aren't integrated. And that it is really through the tuning fork work, through the biofield tuning, that we literally find these areas of magnetic charge, these differentiated little balls of plasma of our own consciousness that are not integrated, that have a boundary layer around them. And there's very much in our culture, we've been trained to like try to let it go or get rid of it or banish it or be afraid of it, that there's often this pushing away. But what I've learned is that these parts actually want and need love and acceptance and reintegration. And that it's that things that we've maybe been habitually trying to push away, we actually need to draw in and give love to, and through that reintegrate or alchemize these separate parts of ourselves. And so the tuning forks and the work that we do with biofield tuning really does do that.
Hey there, inspired souls. We meant what we said, actually. Eileen's tuning forks do really help as you're navigating all these vibrations and frequencies. My favorite is the sonic slider. I'll put a link on screen, a QR code, and a link in the description below if you would like to check out any of the offerings that Eileen offers into the world, whether it's her programs or her courses to learning how to understand all of the equipment, the hardware that is the tuning forks, tuned to the different Schumann frequencies, Fibonacci, etc., etc. There's a whole bunch of stuff that can actually support you, super affordable, super accessible, and you even get a discount code with a discount code AMRIT, AMRIT, link below. Hopefully these tools are super supportive for you on your path as you weave forward. Touch wood. Back to today's episode. Yeah, there's a deep metaphysical, profound wisdom behind that I've just been, because last week I did a podcast with Megan Wattinson on the Magdalene Rising, and we're talking about masculine, feminine, how the shift that it's going through, and even just how we looked at the 7 deadly sins as sins, or the 7 demons as like these things that need to be exercised outside of you, like lanced, like cut that boil, right? And then she goes, but when you read the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, she calls them the 7 powers of being human. And it was like, huh? And she goes, yeah, it's literally, these are, the way she views them is these are climates that are part of being the human condition, and you're going to traverse them, like guilt, shame, sorrow. This is one of the powers of being human, because you're here to learn, and these teach you. But the challenge becomes when you overly identify with any of them. And the metaphor that came to me was, you're sort of in this rowboat, one of those down those Italian canals, and you're just sort of in your boat, sort of traversing life. And then the atmosphere around the canal is kind of like, oh, guilt, or oh, shame. But it was really profound for me, because what I was realizing was she was giving us permission to feel guilt, to feel shame. And I mean, there's no secret here. I have a lot of respect for your work, Eileen. You've been carrying this torch and this work for such a significant long time, but I can't help but reflect on, this is the feminine uprising that we're speaking to, which is like, you don't lance shit. Well, you can, but there's also this opportunity to integrate stuff, and heal it and hold space for it and be okay with it and actually watch it come into harmony and resonance. But there's like a huge collective shift that we're going through in regards to that masculine versus feminine shift and uprising, right?
Yeah, that makes me think about when this article came out not that long ago about how they were using sound to shatter cancer cells. And so many people sent it to me, and I was like, that's actually not my approach. Like, that's a war approach. That's like, you're bad and we must destroy you, rather than you're out of phase, out of sync, not with the right sheet music. Like, I would much rather seek to harmonize and integrate something than to go in and blast it and to destroy it and to create carnage. It's a very masculine approach. Whereas the feminine approach is more gentle, it is more integrative, it is more coming from love. Now, are there times that things probably need to be cut out? Sure, and I think that there's room for both approaches. Uh, but yeah, I would say it is more feminine to try to love something into health before you try to destroy it.
Room for both approaches.
Yeah, well, guess what, Eileen? We had the flyby of 3-Eye Atlas, Mars and Jupiter. So
True. And Venus too, though, right? Didn't it?
a little bit.
Okay, before this divulges into a masculine-feminine debate, Eileen works out a lot too, Stefan, just to let you know. I know I'm
Should we do a flex off? Yeah, people didn't see my flex on camera, but are we going to do a flex off?
I reckon she might actually be able to take her. Anyway, she's got an upcoming course on the Biofield and actually eating and nutrition and stuff, so she's dialed in, bro. But no, before this whole thing digresses, which is I'm surprised we made it this far without any digressions, actually. Guys, yeah, it means so much to have both of you here. There's a lot of stuff, that we could have covered in today's podcast. As always, it's really profound for me, just reflecting back on the episode and the conversations and the talking points that do get hit when we gather and we collect. And yeah, it means a lot to me. Just this particular conversation, the as within, so without is a whole thing here at the Inspired Evolution. You two have completely dedicated your lives to, again, that same thread in its own, unique fashion. And so it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to have both of you here today. And thank you so much for trusting little old me to do a collaborative episode. And I hope both of you can feel just the depths of the love and the respect and the resonance that I have for both of you by being so inspired of having both of you on here together today. So thank you so much for doing this with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Amrit. Thanks for including me and us in your first trivecta. I hope that you have many more. We've set the bar now, so
it's a tough act to follow here. So here we go.
Yeah, thanks so much. You guys are both really great. You both are doing great work, and thankful to have integrated, I feel like, fairly quickly into this whole community, because I just showed up making videos on the Schumann resonances, like, guys, we had a new energy burst, and people seem to like it over time. So if this is where we are now, I think it's going to be really exciting, like 2030s, 2040s. Like, this is going to be a whole new realm that we live in. Welcome to Beyond the Ice Wall.
You inspired soul, limb being, you made it through to the end of another really incredible episode. Thank you so much for your inspirations to evolve. It is such an honor, Touchwood, to be your brother walking this path by your side. I just want to take a moment for all of you that are subscribed to this podcast. Everything you see around here is powered and empowered by your subscription to the channel, Touchwood. Thank you so much for your incredible love and your support. To all of you that haven't yet subscribed, please do take a moment. As I'm saying the word subscribe, the button below is lighting up in the colors of the Inspired Evolution. Please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon, join the community, join the movement, spreading love, positivity, and wisdom like this around the planet together. Thank you so much in advance for your support. And in response to your incredible support, Touchwood, at the time of this recording, we've reached 300,000 Touchwood subscribers. I cannot even begin to grok that number. But in order to give our thanks, we obviously are doing a giveaway and a give back. Thank you so much for your support. We're giving away astrology readings, we're giving away retreat discounts, we're giving away all sorts of things, mentoring sessions, a year-long journey with the Gene Keys if you're open to it. Lots to be given away. In order to enter the giveaway, come join us. We're even giving away access to the community. So come join us inside the community. That's how you enter the giveaway. So inspiredevolution.com/300K at the time of the giveaway. Inside the community, we gather once a month. You get to ask questions of guests like Eileen, or Stefan Burns is coming up in the coming months as well. Touch wood. You can ask your questions about Three Eye Atlas, the nature of our universe, all sorts of questions. Greg Braden's coming up in the future. I step out of the way as the podcaster. You become the podcaster. Ask your questions directly of these guests. We also gather for meditations. We gather in community sharings, there's breath work, yoga, all sorts of cool stuff going on the inside. I like to look at it, it's your opportunity to take this content, Touchwood, and form real connection with real like-minded, real like-hearted people. It is such an incredible space, Touchwood, even if I can so myself. So come join us. We're giving away access, inspiredevolution.com/300K. If you're watching this video after the fact, it's inspiredevolution.com/circle. Links to all of that in the description below. And so if you feel the call, come join us on the inside. And to keep your inspirations flowing onwards, upwards, and inwards on screen now, the next best episode of the Inspired Evolution podcast for you dive in deep into. So go on, take your pick, make your click. I will see you in the next one. I'll see you there.